Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the head of M23 rebels behind the conflict in eastern DR Congo call for a public meeting and a minute's silence for the victims of fighters' takeover of the city of Goma before warning of more unrest and vowing to drive out the government. Also, climate change is exposing more of the world to extreme heat as temperatures in Africa are rising above the global average. Experts meet for talks in Sierra Leone in the hope that cooler heads can help move mitigation plans forward. And as global demand for lithium explodes, so do the number of Nigerian mines for the critical mineral. Many of those heading underground in the hopes of making their fortune do so without the proper permits, exposing themselves to risk. But first, in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, Congolese forces are reportedly bracing to defend the town of Kivulu from advancing M23 insurgents. It's where the airport for South Kivu province is, and nearby communities are living in fear of the arrival of the Rwandan-backed rebels. Last week, thousands of people were killed as they took control of Goma in North Kivu. This week, they organised a huge rally in the city centre, calling on other militia groups to join them and vowing to expand across the whole country. Emmett Livingston tells us more.
The crowds were huge. Many thousands of people packed in and around Goma's main stadium on Thursday to listen to the leaders of the M23. The rebel group, backed by Rwandan troops, captured the city of Goma last week. This was their first mass rally in the city. Corneille Nangaa, the head of the M23's political arm, said that the armed group planned to march on the capital, Kinshasa. The M23 has also begun to name local administrators, a sign that they have no plans of leaving. Over 1,500 kilometres away in Kinshasa, the authorities issued an international arrest warrant for Nangaa, whom they consider to be a war criminal. About 3,000 people were killed during the battle to take Goma, a spectacularly bloody toll for just several days of fighting. Clashes have continued in South Kivu province over the past several days, with M23 rebels capturing 2 towns. Hopes from earlier this week of a lasting ceasefire are now in the dust.
Well, despite Kigali's denials, UN experts say that at least 4,000 Rwandan troops have been backing the M23. The Congolese crisis has regional repercussions, and a crisis meeting is due to be held this weekend between the East African Regional Bloc and the Southern African Regional Bloc. Now, the Eastern African Regional Bloc actually started mediation efforts led by former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta well before this most recent escalation in the fighting. But the process meant to bring armed groups to the table with Congolese authorities has stalled for the last 2 years. Olivia Bizo tells us more.
Kenya's former president Uhuru Kenyatta has said that despite the escalating conflict in eastern DRC, the Nairobi and Luanda peace processes remain critical frameworks for conflict resolution. The Nairobi peace process was established in 2022, and it aims to address internal conflicts within the DRC, notably through political dialogue and military intervention, which includes the deployment of the East African Community's regional force. The Luanda peace process was established in the same year, and it aims to ease tensions between the DRC and Rwanda, which the UN and Kinshasa accuse of backing the M23.
The two processes are complementary and interdependent. It is only through the close coordination of the bilateral negotiations between Rwanda and DRC and the inter-Congolese dialogue and conferencing that this crisis can be brought to a fruitful conclusion.
Kenyatta has submitted a report to the East African Community, the Southern African Development Community, and the African Union on his efforts to address the conflict in eastern DRC. This comes ahead of a summit that will be taking place in Tanzania this Friday and Saturday between the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community to address the escalating situation in the region.
Olivia Bizo there for us. Now, geopolitical tensions bled into South Africa's State of the Nation address on Thursday, days after US President Donald Trump threatened to cut off funding to South Africa, accusing it of confiscating land. President Cyril Ramaphosa said that his country would not be bullied. Trump's believed to have misunderstood the facts of South Africa's new Land Reform Act, as he mischaracterized it in his somewhat cryptic accusations. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio also this week accused Pretoria of doing very bad things, such as using the G20 to promote solidarity, equality and sustainability. Now, although Ramaphosa did not mention the US by name, he's made his nation's position clear.
We are witnessing the rise of nationalism, protectionism, the pursuit of narrow interests, and the decline of common cause. We will not be deterred. We are, as South Africans, a resilient people, and we will not be bullied.
Now, a contingent of 144 Kenyan police arrived in Haiti on Thursday as part of a UN-backed mission to battle gangs in the Caribbean nation. Now, the deployment came after Kenya's leader managed to secure an exemption for the force from a broader freeze on US government assistance. Earlier this week, there'd been fears that $13 million worth of funding for the force would be suspended. Nevertheless, the end to US development aid more widely will have huge repercussions in communities least able to absorb the hit. The uncertainty has left some aid staff working in Nairobi reeling.
It is countrywide, and it did not only happen to our staff. The staff, it was not easy facing the staff going home. Just like that, on a day, they were at work, and then in the evening they are told Monday they are not coming to work.
The responsibility now involved that we don't just look at what has been said, but how do we deal with the 3,300 patients and the 29 staff who would be affected directly by this action.
And the other side of the issue thrown up by the funding fees, the US administrators from USAID have told France 24 that the scrapping of the authority would also impact Africa's ability to negotiate and pick and choose the terms that suit it best as it balances negotiations between its partners from different regions around the world.
The type of development that China and Russia does is very different than what the United States does and what Europe does. And I think examples of this are, economic deals with China that end up putting countries in huge amounts of debt. One of the neat things that we were doing at USAID is under an initiative that actually was kicked off under the first Trump administration, Prosper Africa. This is an initiative that actually helped U.S. businesses to come in and negotiate different agreements with countries. We would send energy experts all over East Africa to help so that when Kenya or Ethiopia is negotiating an energy deal with China, they have an expert who's there who can help them negotiate a better deal with China. None of that stuff is going to be happening anymore.
Well, climate experts from across West Africa met in Freetown on Thursday to tackle the growing impact of extreme heat on the region's cities. Rising urban temperatures driven by deforestation, urban expansion and climate change are straining infrastructure, as our correspondents found out.
West Africa is getting hotter, and it's its cities that are bearing the brunt. On Thursday, policymakers from 6 West African countries gathered in Freetown for the continent's first summit aimed at addressing extreme heat in urban areas. In recent years, temperatures have been rising in the region, and we've seen more frequent and extreme heat waves that are made worse by things like climate change, urbanization, population increase, and deforestation. When it comes to the urban areas, the dark surface areas paired with this human activity and lack of vegetation are trapping heat and leading to something called the urban heat island effect.
So a lot of communities, specifically those that are within the informal settlement, coastal communities and urban areas such as the central business district, is experiencing higher temperatures than other areas within the city, and this is exacerbating heat risks such as health and economic losses and social and environmental implications.
At the summit, Freetown themselves launched a plan to address the issue, including things like a new early warning system, more awareness raising, an increasing tree cover in the capital, as well as creating things called cooling corridors, which bring together existing green spaces, water bodies and ventilation to help circulate cool air in the city.
This summit has been about raising awareness of something that's affecting us all, extreme heat. So what's next after this summit? It's putting those solutions into practice. And that requires collaboration and partnership. It requires funding. It requires policies at the national government level.
Rising temperatures are already having a negative impact on the 500,000 or so who live in informal settlements in Freetown, as Sierra Leone is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change in the world.
Well, as global demand for lithium explodes, so do the number of Nigerian mines for the critical mineral. Many of those heading underground in the hopes of making their fortunes do so without the proper permits. The promise of reward is often worth the risk. Clarice Fortuné tells us more.
Abdullahi Ibrahim is working the stone with his bare hands. He's looking for the rock that may contain the precious lithium, a critical metal in the manufacturing of electric batteries and mobile phones. In the course of a day's work, he manages to fill 3 50-kilo bags, which will net him 150,000 nairas, the equivalent of $100, much more than the monthly minimum wage in Nigeria. Worth the painful hours.
Every day, every single day, we are used to get like 3 bags for each one person. And we are doing work for daytime, like after 1 a.m., sometime for morning time.
Abdullahi Ibrahim came down from Kano in the north, lured by promises of benefiting from a global explosion in demand for lithium. A demand that keeps coming, especially from China. Some Chinese companies have set up plants in the region to transform the rock into lithium oxide before sending it to China.
The demand of lithium has actually made a lot of companies, countries, and interests explore well beyond the delineation that is well known. And right now, lithium spans over about 4 to 5 to 8 states in Nigeria that have been discovered to be of economic values.
Nigeria's economy has been largely based on oil. Lithium is now seen as one of the ways forward to diversify its fragile economy.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.